In the last few videos, I've been looking at the Bishops Gambit, this variation of the King's Gambit, where instead of the normal knight f3, the bishop comes out to c4, a very old gambit move. And we've seen some spectacular wins for white, the so-called immortal game. For example, we've seen a great win by Fischer and Ivanchuk as well, destroying Geary. And a lot of you have been asking, well, okay, what should you do about the Bishop's Gambit? What's the best way? Well, you know, if you feed this into a computer, then it likes, well, several moves. Queen h4 check is disruptive and, well, with best play, probably good for black, but actually very difficult to handle in practice. And we also saw that Geary played in this position pawn to c6, which is theoretically approved, but actually still quite dangerous, actually. But I want to take you all the way back to 1858 and to Paul Morphy. So this is a game between John Schulten and Paul Morphy playing black. And, well, I think Paul Morphy has the answer. I think this is the best way, the most practical way for black to handle the Bishop's Gambit. Morphy played here bishop b4. Notice he's just playing with his pieces. Knight out and bishop out. He's not bothering with superfluous pawn moves. And this, I think, is an excellent way for black to handle this opening. So what I'll do is I'll show you this game, and then at the end I'll go back and fill in a few details because it is still rather complicated. I suppose, you know, when you play a move like bishop b4, then of course it invites this pawn move e5, and this was played in the game. And there's a very important response to this. Black plays the pawn to d5. This is a really nice counter. And here, well, okay, the bishop is attacked, and we're going to see that white in the game played e takes f6. You can also check on b5 and c6. This has been played quite a few times, and results have been very favourable for black actually in this position. It's still incredibly unclear. You know, white has a lot of different possibilities here, but I like it that, well, you can see that black is getting his pieces out very, very quickly. Lots of open lines, lots of really good development. When black recaptures here, there's going to be pressure on the pawn on g2. And yeah, in practice, black has done well. So that's one possibility. There was a game between Gunsberg and Capablanca that went bishop b3 here. And after knight e4, well, Kappa managed to win that game. You can see he's got a nice solid pawn structure already. He's shutting out that bishop on b3. So that was Gunsberg against Capablanca from St. Petersburg 1914. So there you go. Kappa understood what to do against this opening. But let's come back here. So quick recap. We've gone bishop b4, e5, and the important counter d5. And now let's look at the whole game. So e takes f6, pawn takes c4. Well, it's a little bit similar to that other variation. Black has just opened the position for his pieces. F takes g7, rook g8. And at some point, this rook is going to recapture, and there'll be pressure here. Queen e2 check and bishop e6. Okay, well, let's just kind of take stock. What's the material situation? At the moment, it's even, but black is about to capture the pawn on g7. Black's development is very easy. Knight c6 is going to come. Once the queen moves out, then castle's queenside will be possible. So pretty simple development. Queen here is also on the cards. For white, it's not so simple. You can see that this bishop is stuck in for the moment. The king is still in the middle. That's of course absolutely crucial, and it's not absolutely clear how it's going to get to safety. Here, well, for example, knight f3 looks like the most obvious move. This wasn't the game continuation, but knight c6. If white castles kingside, then that invites a fantastic attack. Rook takes. Soon the queen will come out, castles queenside, and there's going to be an absolutely vicious attack on the g file. Doesn't look great. You could try and escape to the queen side, but watch what happens. Queen takes, castles. Right, the king has managed to get out. But in this position, let's see. Black is now a pawn up. There's a threat to take here. That bishop just kind of anchors black's position together, holds everything. Basically, black is just better in that position. Pawn up and healthy pieces. So already it's a difficult position for white. Well, in the game, white played a3. Well, this is a bit desperate because actually the bishop gets pushed to an even better square. Of course, white is hoping that black will exchange. And in that case, it's not so clear because this bishop will come into the game and castles, well, perhaps castles queenside, maybe bishop d2 and castles queenside. Anyway, white's development is not bad there. But of course, there is absolutely no need to take here. Bishop c5. That's just a good square for the bishop. Slicing down this diagonal. Knight f3. Knight c6. Notice white can't castle. Even castling wouldn't be particularly wonderful. Knight e4. And now Morphy is in a hurry. You could retreat that bishop, but no. Knight d4. So the point of this is that after this, so the knight has been knocked out. And now queen h4 check is a threat. It's very, very unpleasant for white now. And the game went like this. c3, attacking the bishop. Morphy flicks in the check. Of course, if g3, that's not going to help at all because after pawn takes, you can't recapture. The rook drops. So queen h4 check, king f1. Now, we know exactly where that king is. Bishop b6, pawn to d4, so white desperate to get this piece into play, but this is a really forlorn hope after this. It's actually very simple for black. Rook d8, hits the queen. Queen comes back. Okay, I'll give you a moment. I'll have a little slurp of tea. You have a little think. How should black play from this position? Well, there are two pretty simple ways to win this one. You could play f3, and if queen takes, check here, and rook d1 is mate, or pawn takes pawn, bishop h3. I mean, this is brutal. Morphy actually didn't play f3. He played instead rook d1 check, which forces the win of the queen. King has no move, so queen in the way. Took the queen and played pawn to f5, and here white resigned. I mean, this is absolute carnage. If the knight drops back, then rook takes g7, and that king is not going to last long in the middle of the board when faced with bishop, rook, and queen. Absolutely brutal. Let's just come back right to the start. So bishop b4, as I said, for me this is classic Morphy. He understood about the need for rapid development in the opening. So he's playing with pieces, not pawns. Now we've just looked at e5 and d5, which is fine for black. What about if white just brings out a piece? Well, this has been tested in games after Morphy. Michael Adams, I should mention, has played this line with black with success. Michael Adams, of course, England's #1 for many years. A tremendous player. And let me just show you one of his games that went like this. The key is not to give up that bishop too soon, because that will actually free white's pieces, but castles. And once again, e5, d5 is fine for black. Castles. And now here, again, don't give up that bishop and grab the pawn, because that will free white's pieces. But instead, knight takes pawn is the key move. And after knight takes d5, black wins the piece back, and I think has a slight advantage. Well, I mean, maybe white's best is to do this and play like this, and you know you're going to get this pawn back. But well, black with the two bishops must be better in that position. I mean, black has very easy development. In a game that Adams played, Zakarian against Adams went instead bishop d3, and after this, well, Adams had very good development. The knight comes across, the bishop protects the pawn, black is a sound pawn up with a good position. So yeah, this is, I was going to say it's the modern way of playing. You play with your pieces, but Morphy understood this way back in the mid-19th century. And I think this is just a really sound way for black to play. You don't get involved with any crazy queen adventures. You just bring your pieces out and get castled as quickly as possible. If you're interested in a repertoire for white with the King's Gambit, do check out my PowerPlay DVDs from ChessBase, also available as downloads as well. You'll find the link down there in the comments and the video description as well. So, you know, I provide a whole repertoire, complete repertoire for white with the King's Gambit. And there's also a second DVD that features tactics with the King's Gambit, typical tactics, so you can really get yourself really sharp before you play this opening. Thanks for watching.